Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Steve Walter. Today I want to talk to you about cheating golden hour. It's time for a Tuesday Tips. Okay, so I want to use some lifestyle work that I've been doing recently to share a bit of a tip in cheating golden hour or just recreating golden hour or just warming up your image or just using gels. There's a whole bunch of tips combined in here, but specifically where I've been using it and where I found success is when you need to recreate that sort of hard golden light look, right? That nice warm tone. So here's an image that I shot recently, and this is actually set to an auto white balance, which I almost never shoot in, but I wanted to kind of use that to showcase a point, right? This is set to auto because it's telling the camera, hey, you figure out what the color should be. And because there is such a warm light source coming in, it tends to cool that whole image off. So first, let me talk about the setup that I did, and then let me talk about the settings and the color and how to really kind of cheat it and really emphasize that look of golden hour. So what I did was, you can see just over here, this circle, this glowing orb, this nice orange glowing orb is an LED. This is a Godox 200 watt, big, it's a, it looks like a monoblock or, a monoblock, strobe type LED. So it's big and it's powerful. I had it outside. I ran some power out there. It is not battery powered. I ran an extension cord out there, and I put a CTO gel on it. If you're not familiar with CTO, it's color temperature orange. There's a whole bunch of them. CTS, color temperature straw. There's half CTO, quarter CTO. I used a full CTO, meaning one stop of my light is being consumed by a piece of orange plastic, and therefore it is giving me this nice warm orange tone. So I'm taking a daylight balanced LED and making it a lot warmer, making it color temperature orange or closer to a tungsten, really just warming it up. So when you set your color temperature in your camera to auto, it sees a lot of warmth and it says, ooh, I need to fix that. Let me cool things down. We don't want that. So again, I have it set here to auto to kind of showcase a point. Notice how blue the counter, the cabinets, and the floor are. I don't want that. And really, especially when I'm shooting, I don't want that because I know I want this image to feel very warm. Also, I should mention, this was, let me see what time of day this was. This was in the afternoon. Maybe this was like around 4 o'clock or so. Maybe it wasn't quite that late. Oh yeah, 5:30. Okay, so it was getting late. Sun sets around 8:30, so I was definitely well before golden hour. And you can actually see the background, these bushes and this tree. You can see that the sun was a little bit warm and it was getting a little bit low, right? Because this is almost a side light. You can see here's a car, the edge of a car, and a nice long shadow. So I wasn't cheating it that much, right? It's not like this was in the middle of the day and I was trying to do this. So I did have a little bit of help from the ambient light, but not much, because without this light, I'll tell you what, there was no real direct light coming in these windows. So that's why I did this effect. Again, back to talking about the color. When I'm shooting it in camera, I really want it to look and feel warm, so I know that I'm kind of hitting my mark. I want to make sure that when I look on the back of that LCD, I can say, yes, this is warm the way I want it to be. So I'm going to head over to shade. If you're familiar with shade white balance, look how warm that got. If you're familiar with shade white balance, right, if you're sitting under a tree, the color of shade is going to be cool. So shade, in this case, is adding warmth to kind of counteract that. So in this case, I have warmth, and then I'm adding warmth with my white balance, so I'm making the whole image feel really warm. But you can see now how much better this looks. This looks like golden hour, or at least in my opinion it does. You might look at this and go, Steve, you're way off. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I think you're way off. Just kidding. We're still friends. So this is really the look that I'm going for. Now, to further enhance it, I want to do some post-production, right? It's not enough to just add this light. I mean, it might be enough, but for me, it's not enough to just add this light. So I want to do some post-production. So this was just the base image. I actually started editing an image, and I do have a final edit, or pretty close to a final edit, right here. So you can see, there's definitely some changes from the original that I was just working on. And let me walk you through some of what I did here. So first things first, before I really kind of do anything, is I want to add some radial filters. And you can see I've added this radial filter right over here. And I've added even more warmth to that radial filter, right? I'm sort of simulating a lens flare, right? To really kind of sell that idea that the sun is really low and maybe some of it's hitting, and it's so low and it's blasting in through so hard that some of it's hitting my lens. So I've warmed it up, I've increased the exposure, I've reduced contrast again to kind of emphasize what a flare does. I've increased my shadows, and then I've also gone into the color and I've added some warmth there too. It's a little bit different from white balance, where you're just kind of adding like a color cast. So I'm really trying to make everything warmer here. I've also increased the black levels. So that's what I did for my radial. And let me show you that before and after. So you can see that really adds that boost from the window. No flare, flare. So that's the radial, and then let's come down here to our develop settings. You can see I have a much warmer color temperature. I've got a little bit of magenta added in there. My exposure goes up, my contrast goes up. My highlights come down because I want to try to preserve some of that detail because I know I'm intentionally overexposing a lot of it, so I want to try to retain some of that detail. I'm going to lift up my shadows and my white point. And if I come to the tone curve, you can see I've lifted the darker areas and the lighter areas. So again, I'm overall boosting. Let's do it before and after. I'm just boosting that because I want to increase that ambience as if this light is really kind of blasting in this room and scattering around. The HSL, you can see I did a little bit of modification here, moving my greens a little bit more to a warmer source. Same thing with my yellows, I'm making them a little bit more orange. Here's a before and after. Really, you can see this taking place in the trees in the background. I've also desaturated. I pulled out all my blues because I don't want blues affecting the scene. If I really crank up the blues, you see it starts to show up on the floor a little bit. I don't want it to show up on the floor. I'm just going to pull that right out, and I could even pull out, is there some purple in there? Yep, I'm going to pull out some of that purple, and I'm going to pull out some of that magenta. And I'm noticing now I could probably add a little bit of more warmth down here to the floor, but it's not that crucial. Anyway, that's what I did here for my HSL, again, before and after. And then let's head over to split toning. So split toning, you can see in the highlights I've added some warmth. If it's not clear, 45 is pretty warm. That's way too much. Let's undo that. And then in the shadow tones, I've added warmth. So again, I'm warming this up overall again. If I turn that off and on, you can see with it off, I think it still looks good. It still looks really nice. But again, I'm really selling it, so I'm going to turn those on. Detail, nothing there. Lens corrections, yeah, you want to do your lens corrections. Let's do that. I did not shoot with the Tokina. Lightroom, you're off a little bit there. This was the Sigma. This was shot with the Sigma 50 Art. I thoroughly enjoy that lens. Calibration, you can see here, I did some tweaking as well. Before and after. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking that warmth and I'm moving it more into a green space versus a warmth of magenta, which is something that you'd see a little bit more during, high noon, early afternoon, where you get magenta. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to counteract that because I want it to look later in the day. I want it to have a little bit more of a mood, and the green is going to really help emphasize that. So again, before and after. Now, this is something that you could, by all means, adjust it so that maybe you want it to feel a little bit more orangey and red. I don't. I want it to be a little bit more closer to that yellow spectrum. So that's how I cheated golden hour. I definitely was, about 2 hours out from golden hour because 7:30 would have been the start of golden hour. And I wanted to make sure that this mood was, end of the day, she just finished a run. She's come into the kitchen. She's going to enjoy one of these Zenby bars and just kind of relax and hang out. She didn't actually go for a run, and it wasn't that late in the day. She did enjoy that Zenby bar, though, I'll tell you what. So I hope that was helpful to see. Thoughts, questions, feedback, please let me know. I love to know all of those things that you're thinking. This is a good technique, whether it be with LED or it just as easily could have been done with a strobe, a speed light. If I put a speed light out there, it would have been great. And you might be saying, Steve, well, why didn't you? Well, what you don't see in this image is the crew of video. So there was video crew shooting, and they can't use a speed light. But we want to make sure that the still images and the video images work together. So that's why the lighting was designed based around constant lighting, was because there was a video crew there. Didn't make sense to set it up twice. I knew that I'd be able to get the look that I wanted, but more specifically for video. So I could have set up a speed light, I could have set up a really powerful strobe, and I could have blasted a lot more light, but I think this effect worked just fine. What do you think? let me know in the comments below. That's what people say, right? You can or you don't have to. It's all right. You can just watch this and move on to the next video. See you next week.